Sort of Imagine More. We have our special guest today, Amanda Finley.
Hi,
So excited to
thanks
see
for
you,
having me
Amanda.
back. It's good to see you too.
Yeah, we love when you're on the show. You have such great insights.
You may
And
be
really,
our most frequented guest at this point.
Oh, well, thank you.
yes.
Yeah, I'm just here for your grandma, so
That's so
she's great.
true. Yes, you're a fan favorite, especially since grandma. So we're gonna let guys, I just want to welcome you back to the episode. We have a packed show for you. So I'm gonna let Seth do his introduction, and we're gonna quickly reintroduce Amanda to the world. You guys already know her, but a quick bio, and then we'll get off with the show.
All right.
Welcome back, guys. We got another great week of Imagine More. We got a couple other weeks coming up with some big guests, but no one better than Amanda, our most frequented guest at this point. Basically the OG of this podcast.
Yeah.
She's always been here for the campaign. And she's got an amazing voice and a lot on her mind.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
A little bit. Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
As usual.
You've been going through it, Amanda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah, so I've done a lot of things in life. I was an archaeologist. I sang opera for a while when I lived in St. Louis, and a couple of years ago I got COVID and developed long COVID, and I've been involved in advocacy ever since. Yeah, a lot of socioeconomic impacts to talk about related to that. I actually lost my home on Monday, so I am live from Shea Super 8.
Yep. And I can tell you this, Amanda, we're glad that you're on the show and you're making a sacrifice, even though you're going through a hard time, just to be here. That's amazing. And we really appreciate that.
Well, I've always appreciated your insights, your perspectives, and just you've always listened. And that means a lot in this world.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to start the show off. We have some interesting topics that I wanted to talk to the panel about today. And I think that, I got to tee off with the hot topic of the week, and that's the Arizona Supreme Court. And man, as you guys see from Amanda's facial expression, this is a very, very, very interesting topic because the Arizona Supreme Court recently just brought in a law. Let's see when it was enacted. I think it was enacted in
1864.
1864. Yes, 1864. And essentially, this law is a very archaic, extremely archaic abortion law, essentially stating that there's almost zero exceptions for the mother. And this is, imagine, I've never thought, I will see a day where progressives and conservatives agree that this law goes way too far, extremely too far. And I think there's a consensus there. So what do you guys heard about it this week? What are you guys' thoughts on the law, Seth?
I've only barely read on the
Well,
topic.
I gotta tell you, Missouri. Yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead, tell us, Amanda. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Missouri isn't terribly far behind. I'm in Kansas City. It's terrifying. Like, what do you do if you are 47 years old and like, what do you do? Can you just sign in to a clinic somewhere and say, please take all the apparatus needed just in case? Because if you're not providing any exceptions, and even then it shouldn't be a matter of exception, it's why is the state dictating this? This is healthcare. Yeah. This is absurd.
Yeah, it is absurd. And honestly, it kind of goes back to what the Supreme Court did. This was kind of the issue that everyone first saw coming. States are going to do their own things, and they're not going to have consensus in terms of one idea behind abortion. I mean, the reason why we need a consensus behind abortion is, and a lot of people don't need to understand, is that we are 50 states in one, and essentially we are 50 independent countries under one idea. And what happens is when you have these different laws in different sectors, make something illegal in one state and illegal, you know, not illegal in another, happens all the time. But something as common as abortion that affects all 50 states, that's when usually the federal government steps in and it's like, okay, we're going to make one concise law to protect everyone. And here, there's no protections. I mean, the fact that the Supreme Court brought back an 1864 law, 1864, by the way, and essentially have made no carve outs or exceptions for the life of rape victims, life of a mother. It's telling in 2024. So I think that we have to definitely hold their feet to the fire this November. I mean, I know we talked about this last week, Seth, but we in Florida, we did something right. Chop it up to Florida, pat on the back. We got ourselves, we got our abortion rights, and I can't even pat myself on the back. I can pat the people who walked those streets, who knocked on those doors,
Right.
who sat in the middle of Ybor City. And if you guys know what's Ybor City, it's like our Mardi Gras area. If you're from Tampa, they sat there and they got people to sign these petitions. And those people worked really hard to get all those signatures. And I think Steph even told me they went like over like 125% of what they needed because they expected there was to be some rejection. And they did, and they got it on the ballot. So we have to applaud them here, us in Florida. Well, them, those real warriors out there who's really fighting every single day. And I got to say that we were able to get it on the ballot. So Florida's a weird state. Like we have a legislature that can make laws, but the state, we have citizen initiatives that we can kind of create laws ourselves. I'm not sure many states adopt that. Seth, do you know how many states actually has that kind of referendum? They can do that.
I would imagine it's like in the 30s or something. It's very mixed.
Yeah. Like for my understanding, we're unique in that respect. It's like this is why we have a conservative Republican House and Senate, but yet we have marijuana. We pass marijuana laws here, and marijuana is illegal. So yeah, that's why Florida's the weird state because they're Republican legislators because gerrymandering, and we're not going down that road. But we're a very purple state. We're very democratic too, and a lot of ideas. We just
It's not very dissimilar from all the other states where it's like big pockets of liberal neighborhoods in the cities, and then you go outside in rural areas. It's just like every other state, but they just happen to have had power at the right amount of time and use that power to consolidate. Where they get their votes from and use the electoral process to subvert the Democrats.
Yeah, and that's been a game plan for a very long time, and it's worked. I'm not going to say that it hasn't worked. They kind of run all the states pretty much, essentially. If you're not outside the big blues, but they run pretty much every other state.
Every other county.
Yeah, or every other county. Not so much counties. I don't think they run that many counties. I think they run mostly states because counties.
Florida runs the states?
What do you mean?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Republican legislature in Florida.
No, most Republican legislatures run states because it's just the way gerrymandering is, and most state elections are off elections, so you don't get the mass population. So that's how they get around, and it's very Republican. And most people don't realize that state politics is just as important as federal. But actually, state politics has more impact on someone's life than federal. But they don't know that because no one's going to come out in 2020 because it's not sexy. They don't come off in off years. They come off with the presidency, and that's kind of why they got that advantage. But locally, they're not as powerful locally as they are statewide. Usually, they're more powerful statewide than they are locally.
We see that here too. Missouri is got that reputation. But we had a local election. Well, I'm sorry. There's a time difference here between our.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, so we actually had a local election in Kansas City last week. Last week. There was only one thing on the ballot for me, and this ballot measure did not pass, and it was largely because of a local tenants union, KC Tenants. They wanted the only issue on the ballot for most of us was, do you want taxpayer money to go toward funding a new downtown stadium? And they were talking about it. It was basically a gentrification, not even a gentrification thing. It was a displacement thing into a very vibrant arts community. They wanted to knock it down and on taxpayer money and pay for all this new stadium that we really don't need. And it was the people pushing back saying no, and it was turned down. So it was
I think
pretty cool to see that.
I heard that on the news. This is the one that they're trying to build for Kansas City Chiefs, right?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, because I think there was some guy who asked them, "Hey, Chiefs, come move to like Texas or something like that." It was
They're
some
not gonna
weird.
move. They're not gonna move and do it. Come on. They were using some bullying and other just below the bar tactics. I mean, but it didn't pass.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing for citizen initiatives. They're good out there because guess what? That's me and Seth always talked about this. We think that's the fairest way to conduct government is having citizens participate in the policy making decisions, and that's the early. I mean, referendums are very old, but those are like the frameworks that we should be using to kind of guide us going forward. Well, I mean, now we can be more savvy. We can shoot out Texas. We can get polls of our constituents. I think Seth talked about that with one of his congressmen in Michigan. He was like that. He was very savvy about polling people and informing them. So I personally believe that's the way policy should be going. Is more connectivity and communications with the actual constituents. So we're definitely working that way. Hopefully, our government weren't slow. They're 50 years behind us. So
no, exactly. And if we were more modernized and accountable to the people and the way technology has moved, forward, because technology has connected us so much that we can be more communicative about, how people are voting, why they're voting, how the process is conducted. But they've still kept this sort of disassociation between the people, which kind of leads, people to become Republicans and distrust government and assume that they're all these elitists who are out of touch with the regular people. We could make it a lot more personable and understanding for the everyday American instead of so boring and dense.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of,
and I think.
Amanda?
Oh yeah, no, we have a couple of local politicians here in Missouri who've really made a big push in that area. Like Jess Piper, you've probably seen Jess all over Twitter. I love Jess. She's really done a lot to amplify these rural voices who are they're not Mike Moon. He's a state senator in Missouri. He was the only no vote against child marriage laws this week and a year ago.
Wow.
And this is what we're dealing with in Missouri. But because people are running uncontested with people like Mike Moon, we're not getting the representation that really reflects what people in Missouri think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of goes back to what I was saying about we have essentially these elections are run in I wouldn't say non-important years, but I would, for lack of a better word, I would say that it's just not as marketed as a very important election.
It's not as sexy
it's not as sexy, and it's not getting any federal coverage. When I mean federal, I mean like national news. It's just not getting that kind of coverage to have people go out to vote. For whatever it is, I think we should probably move our elections to also one date. Give people the opportunity to just decide, as one fell sweep. I mean, that's never going to happen because, state elections are run by states. But that's one of those progressive things we could possibly do is making elections just literally make it election day. You can't work. You can't do anything. All you have to do that day is vote and pick your candidates.
I don't know that you even need to be showing up in person these days. I am not one of those people that thinks that there's a mass conspiracy of ballot tampering that's going to be any less common in the paper ballots that do at the center. I don't know. I think that we can move towards electronic or at least mail-in ballot or something like that.
It works. I mean, we lost Amanda.
We lost Amanda. She'll be back.
Yeah. So it works. So I mean, it's just a matter of, do the parties like that? And if they did like it, they'll continue to do it. But if they didn't, they'll stop it. Like mail-in ballots was a Republican-led thing for years, and Democrats always failed in that. But during the COVID push, Democrats switched around and said, hey, let's do this because we want to make sure we have people come to the polls. It worked masterfully for us during the COVID years.
Yeah.
I mean, it just did.
And it wasn't even really because of us. For a while, Republicans were dominating the mail-in ballots, obviously, because they're old people in Florida who are voting can't leave their apartment. It makes sense. But then Trump does all this 180 where it's like, we want all our constituents to show up in person, to show them. But don't vote on the ballots. Don't vote on the paper ballots. And then all these people just didn't vote because they didn't want to wait in line for an hour or whatever. So he lost a giant brink of the voting base. And then all of a sudden blames conspiracies that mail-in boxes must have been manipulated because where'd all of his votes go? Well, maybe you told them not to vote, you dumbass. That's really where they all went. And the entire thing is because he was cocky and thought that he could win without mail-in ballots or something. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
So I agree with you. It was just very bad news for him to switch his rhetoric the way he did. All right. So Amanda's still not back?
I'm texting her, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, speaking of vote, did you know that this week marks the week that the Civil Rights Act was passed?
Really? In this in 67 or something?
Yeah, 67. I mean, it had nothing to do with voting, but it's still monumental.
Yeah,
I thought that was a very interesting to know that today in history, that's what happened. Mr. Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act.
The GOAT.
The GOAT. I don't know. Some may disagree with him being the GOAT.
Who's your favorite president?
That's a tough one.
I mean, Lincoln excluded. Post-Lincoln.
Come on. Everyone's got Lincoln.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think everyone's got Lincoln. Okay. I bring my presidents in different categories. Who got the most done was Lyndon B. Johnson.
So, we got to make it back too. Keep going though. Keep going.
Yeah. My favorite.
Welcome back.
Yeah, president in regards to getting things done. Welcome back, Amanda.
We're talking favorite presidents.
Favorite presidents. Okay. Let me think.
Yeah, my favorite president in terms of getting things done. What, Amanda?
No, I'll continue. I'm thinking who my favorite is.
Oh, okay. And it's going to be Lyndon B. Johnson. In terms of most charismatic president, it's going to be between Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. In terms of
Kennedy. Nah,
Kennedy. I never thought Kennedy was charismatic.
No, he's not he's charisma for his time.
For his time, yeah. If it's the 60s, yeah.
No, Obama is like 10 out of 10 charisma. You really can't be more charismatic than him.
Yeah, you can't.
Be.
Clinton was up there for a while.
Yeah, President Clinton had a swag to him that similar to Obama. They both had it. Mm-hmm. It's just a swag there, and I don't think swag is the actual Webster Dictionary word, but anyone knows what it is. It is. Anyone knows what I mean. It's just there's a
certain je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, that's the French way of saying swag. But
oh God, we're not talking in French tonight, y'all.
This is America.
Yeah, America. So yeah, I think that out of my presidents, I literally look at them through two lenses. I look at them.
Yeah.
Are they inspiring?
Favorite as in like favorite dude, and then there's favorite as in best accomplishments kind of thing.
Exactly.
Or best ability to get us through situations and lead facilitate certain bills and stuff. So,
Yep, exactly. What about you, Seth?
I mean, I like LBJ a lot.
I can't say Abe. You can't say Abe either.
No, I wasn't. Abraham Lincoln just feels like the kind of one where there's not a lot of like negative externalities.
Yeah.
Like he is authoritarian moments, and for good reason to an extent. But I'm definitely an LBJ kind of guy. Charisma wise, I mean, it's hard to say because there's not a lot of like on camera. But I like Teddy Roosevelt for sure.
Oh, that's a nice sleeper one. No one ever talks about that. He's like my sleeper president every single time.
Yeah, he had the Riz for sure.
Yeah, for the cutting down trees and he had a lot of swag.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I like
it's kind of bad. Yeah.
All right, man.
I gotta say, well, I gotta say, maybe the fifth most problematic president, but I think the one who really had the most impact. I think the one who had the most impact on U.S. history is Thomas Jefferson. I say that. Yeah. And I say that knowing he's a problematic character, but at the same time, he was the kind of person he more than doubled the size of the United States, but he didn't just stop there like some people would. I'm a big Lewis and Clark buff. I love Lewis and Clark history.
Yeah.
And he was able to take his protege, Meriwether Lewis, train him in literally everything under the sun. Like, here, I want you to go learn everything I've learned, plus some. And now I want you to go out there and tell me what's not on the map. Tell me what's out there. I don't know if you're going to make it back, so here's a blank check. And that's exactly what he did. Pretty cool stuff.
I
mean, he was a visionary, I tell you that much.
Yes.
I think he's very progressive for his time too. Obviously in our time is very problematic, but I think he was like a true like visionary for his time, and he wasn't like a super religious person too. He had like a very nuanced perspective on like God and stuff, which is interesting for the time, where like people would say something and then all of a sudden they're being burned for being a witch. Like for the time, that was very progressive.
Yeah,
There's just a lot.
Know if he was a progressive, because I mean,
for 1700s he was. He's not. Yeah, he was advocating for liberalism against conservatism at a time when.
Was he really? Because I think he was very pro-state.
He was very pro-state. And the thing we have to remember with Jefferson is that he may have said a lot of things, but his personal actions didn't always back it up.
That's true. Yeah. But no, he was very pro-state. So
he was very pro decentralized states. He was the kind of like.
Would that make you type? Would that make you today modern conservative or today's modern progressive? Excuse me.
It's I think he's more of like a libertarian, honestly.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting thing.
Because he's more. He's not like a religious type or like a social conservative, any of that kind of stuff. But he's more for like very decentralized government and like. But it made more sense at a time when like social systems didn't even really exist. So it's not exactly the same. It was more progressive from a time when monarchists and that was the state and then to be a decentralized liberal, libertarian type at a time is progressive.
Yeah.
Now it's
is social curious a term? Like that's what he was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because he's well, we think about these debates between the Secretary of Treasury and the Secretary of State. How we not just how we found this country, but how we fund this country as well. But he was a very careful note taker, and he's actually considered the father of American archaeology. And I would posit that he's actually the father of American anthropology as well, because he wanted to know everything about everything. And just because that curiosity didn't lead him to personal practices that reflected that, it doesn't negate a lot of the things that he instilled that later led to good things.
Well, I think all the founding fathers had secret lives. They had secret double lives. I mean, they're just like
Yeah.
they had a way they had to represent because you got to understand they were leading a group of people that came from a king like mentality
Hmm.
to governing themselves. So
Yeah.
they had to like not kind of poke the bear a little bit, where it's like, yeah, why do you guys have
Yeah.
slaves? Or, yeah, why do we have this? Why do you? So I understand that position. It's like they didn't want to. It's already such a young country.
Hmm.
They didn't want to go into all these social kind of debates, but they kind of wrote the
Yeah.
Constitution open ended. So when these debates do happen, we move the country forward. Because I mean, like a lot of, I mean, I know for a fact George
Unless
Washington
you're
he freed all his slaves, huh?
Arizona. Unless you're
George Washington.
Arizona.
Well, they're bringing back laws from 1864. It's like everyone should be fired in that Supreme Court. It's like, are we serious? It's like, yeah, I don't get it. I mean, at the end of the day, abortion's such a controversial issue, but I think it's really more of a moralist issue than it is the actual policy position.
And I think
I
these
think,
abortion restrictions are going to be more uh, stab in the back for the Republicans than I think it's going to be. I think they're like shooting themselves in the foot. That's more what I meant to say. Where like
yeah,
it's going to have more pushback and they're going to lose more elections and have less power over the abortion decision in the first place.
yeah, they're definitely going to have a lot of pushback because, I mean, at the end of the day, women don't like it, and the women don't like to be told what to do, and this really affects only women. I mean, it
Pretty
affects. I
much.
mean, at the end of the day, men we chime in on it, we put our perspective on it, but I mean, unless you are, unless you're in that position of being able to make that decision to conceive if you're going to, conceive a child or not,
Mm-hmm.
most of that decision relies on a woman. And I had a that's funny. My
Yeah.
wife's pregnant, but I was in this courtroom with this judge.
Congrats, I did that.
Oh yeah, yeah, she is. Yeah. So I was in this courtroom with this judge. He said something funny to me, but it's very true. I told the judge, I was like, yeah, I can't be here for this particular hearing because my wife's, well, I'm having a baby. And I said that statement and she laughed at me. And she was like, no, your
Sure she
wife is
did.
having a baby. You're not having a baby. And that really what comes down to abortion. That's really what abortion is. It's like
Yeah.
we're not as men having the baby. Um, you know, obviously it goes, it's the woman's choice to decide what she does with her body. And the fact that a whole bunch of men are making decisions, it's turning a lot of women off because it's like, wait, you're not gonna tell me what to do. And it's like we goes back to our, the 1920. Sorry, my memory slips me. Wasn't when was the Women's Act passed? 1920.
Oh
The
gosh.
voting rights, yeah, around
Yeah,
it was in the around within give or take a couple years.
yeah, 1920.
It was in
The
my
right to
great
vote.
grandmother's lifetime. So
So it had to be in 1920s. Yes. So it was 1920s, I believe. Yeah. So that's gonna get at me. Give me 1 second. Yeah. Sorry, I'm one of those people who have to. 1919. Actually, it was ratified August 18, 1920. Good. All right, we can move on. Just wanted to make sure I was right. It was 1920, and that's what it was all about. It's just a woman's right to choose what she does with her livelihood, and we're going back and we're kind of challenging all these rights and saying to a woman that, and here it is, because this is a moral issue. I don't think no one ever is making a decision based on some kind of policy position because they're not. They're making a decision based on if they're Christian or not. And the reality is we are going back to trying to moralize our country through policy, and that is not the way the founders constructed the Constitution. It was social policies driven towards the betterment of society. It's not driven towards the betterment of an agenda. And so what
yeah.
we see here is women rights who they fought in the 1920s for those social rights to vote so that they can make decisions on what they do with their lives is being challenged. So I definitely agree with you, Seth. I think it's going to backfire because I think that it's an underlying secret thing inside. I think a lot of women ones who were born as a woman, ones who identify as a woman, that it should be their rights to decide what happens to them. And I think that is going to be truly that something that's going to really hurt the Republicans come the fall.
Yeah, it's this is a hot issue in Missouri as well, where boy, unless you are a white male, a white cisgender male in the state of Missouri, they don't want you to have rights. And it's beyond frustrating. I am 47. If something were to happen to me, with long COVID and everything else, come on. And there are no social supports out there should something happen. I don't understand what their end game is other than just sheer control. And every time someone...
Sorry, I was just going to say,
Oh, yeah.
It's not like the abortion bans have been effective or anything either. That's the thing. Is it just sort of just sends people in the wrong directions. It just makes you have to go to a different state, and it just ends up criminalizing people with miscarriages or people, you know what I mean, that have actual medical needs, life-threatening conditions that are keeping them from having an abortion. And there was this Democratic ad passing around, which I hope everybody else out there sees. It was like a woman showing her baby clothes and baby shoes and all this crib and all the stuff that she had prepared, and that she was having a miscarriage or some sort of medical problem. She went there, and since they had to just let it die, and then let the child die, and then she wasn't allowed to get some sort of medical care as a result, because just certain regulations that have been put up because of the suspicion of abortion or something like that. And then she went to can't remember the term, but she
went septic. Yeah.
Septic, thank you. Yeah, like twice, something like that. And then she is probably not able to have children now, just because of the state's medical intervention. It's just not effective, especially in modern society, and it's not realistic. We can talk about obviously there's no situation in which after birth abortions or whatever the hell Republicans are talking about. Obviously, we're on the same page of something that ridiculous, but they're not living in the same world as us, where that's just not a thing that happens. And that's the kind of thing that fills their brain, that makes them think that they have to regulate this abortion, industrial complex or whatever the hell they think is going on. It's not it's not reality. Reality is,
and they think it's an industrial complex, and it's not.
Yeah, they think it's all for profit and stuff.
Yeah, and they have no idea, especially when we're talking like a later term abortion. They think that this is some sort of women are seeing this as a form of birth control. Number one, no. Number two, it's a really complex issue. If someone is seeking a late-term abortion, it's not because they changed their mind. It's because something is seriously wrong, and it's really hard to get one. Like the medical hurdles that you have to go over to make that happen are almost impossible.
Yeah.
And those are decisions detrimental to the life of the mother and of the potential child, which no person is going to take lightly. It's an absolutely ridiculous concept that this is some sort of thing that people want to do, and they also conflate those kind of made up late-term abortion situations that don't exist, and also conflate them with the Plan B pill, when a sperm just attaches to an egg, as if they're the same level of or even, and then they don't care about the actual health care of living adults with histories and families. They have everything backwards and confused.
Well, and if you ask them, when does life begin? Nobody knows. There is no scientific answer to this. We don't know. There is no one point. You can't. There's no way of measuring that in any one pregnancy.
Life begins when you're a cell. Life is always there. It's whether or not consciousness
viable.
or some sort of self-awareness or actual, whatever is worth protecting about humanity is not present in a sperm or in a egg or even a fertilized egg. If there's somewhere down the path when some sort of spark of consciousness happens, and it's not, it's not at conception. So there's obviously some. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That delay is
You're
bugging the heck out of me.
Yeah.
No, you guys know, I've got that Facebook group, for long COVID, and we try to really police. Okay, just check your politics at the door, because we have really differing views on this. Check your religion at the door too. And people, there are some people who really don't want you to pray for them, please and thank you. Please respect that. Yeah. And someone posted the other day, hey, please don't pray for me because I have this belief. And people still commented, oh, I'll pray for you. So I had to hop in and say, okay, if we have to choose a religion here, y'all are Mormon now. Hope you're cool with that.
Yeah.
That's how we're going. They didn't like that.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
nobody can nobody can envision a reality in which their, cultural worldview is not dominant and they are the minority group in a culture. That's the thing. There's no sort of reality there. They don't live in a situation in which they are the ones without power that are being forced into such situations, like everyone else in the country that's not a white Christian straight this or that.
Yeah. I mean, both your points are taken very well. I mean, we just have to understand that diversity is the key, and to understand that when we come up with policies, that we have to think about all the parties, and women, especially, are for us should be the most important party because they're the one who really conceives life. And the men, my wife says something that's pretty funny, but it's very true. Women control the fact that men live that are here. Women are literally the center of the world. Because if without women, a man wouldn't be here. So we have to be mindful of that, and we have to be conscious of telling women what they can and cannot do, especially if we don't have that same mandate for men. My wife also says, and I'm quoting her a lot tonight, that how come we can't get abortions? Why is it always up to a woman? And so that is very true. I don't see no politician policing men abortions. So
nope.
And
can we?
One last point to that, which I think was funny. I'm going to say that. She always says that most men commit abortions every night. And we're going to leave that at that.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the sanctity of life to seriousness, then that's true. It's not life that's worth preserving. Otherwise, you couldn't even be a vegetarian because you're ending life every time you eat a shred of lettuce.
Yeah.
There's something more valuable with consciousness that's worth protecting. And we have people that you drive past every single day who have life and who have family and history, and they just live on the streets. And that's there's without option, or they without the resources they need to be able to get a job, be able to be competent, in the rest of society, and they're just sort of broken, sad, just barely keeping it together. They're literally everything that's should be protected in society and should be prevented, and it's helpful to nobody. Yet we're fixating on microscopic sperm and egg connections, whether or not they're worth protecting, or people have personal agency over their own physical bodies. No, we have completely misdirected priorities as a society.
Yeah,
and I think
only a third of those people that you see. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Oh no, and only a third of the people that you see out there are unhoused or unsheltered homeless.
Yeah.
Far more people are sheltered homeless.
Yeah.
And that kind of gets to the crux of this entire abortion argument and healthcare access. It is awfully hard to access healthcare when you can't even access other basics like housing or food or any of that. How are you supposed to make choices like that if you're on the streets?
Yeah.
Or if you don't if you don't have access to things that keep you safe.
Yeah. How can you really?
Yeah, I feel like we talk about it often, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how Republicans are and libertarians are so hyper fixated on like the aspect of self-realization, the very top of the pyramid, and the concept of whether or not they can own, every penny of the dollar that they produce at the company, which has natural property rights and like all this sort of made up stuff, and you know pointless endeavors that they hyperfixate on, when there's people that can't even reach the bare minimum of, like, they can't even talk about taxes because they don't even have an income. They don't even have access to a roof to sleep at
Right.
night. They don't have access to clean clothes to show up to a job interview. They don't have transportation. They don't have this or that. There's absolutely no help for them, and there's absolutely nobody to help them. And people treat them as subhuman, and people don't. They just sort of brush them off. The second you become homeless, you're in a different category of human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's nothing society is willing to do.
That's
You're investing all this money into
No,
endless
you're-
think tanks. Go for it, please. No, go ahead.
Oh no, yeah. So I in 2019, please don't do this at home, kids. I took in this homeless couple when we had a really cold spell in Kansas City. It got down to like 20 below, and I just thought, wow, I can't in good conscience go home knowing someone's going to die out there. So 11:30 at night, I drove back downtown where I saw some people panhandling and flying, like you fly a sign. There were two people, and I told myself, "I'll help two people," and there were two people there. And they be Seth and Louisa. Louisa has since passed away, but they really taught me a lot about what it means to be on the streets. And if you ask most people on the streets, what's your number one thing? They feel invisible. It's not about, oh, well, I need $5 to get my hit. Most people on the streets aren't out there because of mental health issues. Most of them are certainly not out there because of drug or other addictions. They're out there because they have no societal support. There's nothing that prevented them from landing in this position, or like in Seth and Louise's cases, they grew up in poverty. They'd never known anything else. They feel invisible. It's not about the food. It's not about the money. It's not even about the shelter. They feel invisible. And people try to run them over. The stories I've heard from both Seth and Louisa and other people downtown, because I would drive around like doing deliveries with my side gig, and I would stop like, hey, roll down the window. Hey, you eat today, buddy? No? Hey, you want some socks too? I got socks.
Mm-hmm.
They feel invisible. That's really, I can't believe we haven't changed this.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I agree. Well,
no, go ahead.
No, go ahead. One last thought.
It's not even like a left versus right issue. Even the concept of like a negative income tax, it's very similar to the universal basic income, has been tied to right-wing economics for a long time. Like Milton Friedman, like this is all of libertarian economics, classical liberal economics have talked about like a negative income tax. People should get a minimum, a floor, something back received for how much they did not make in that year. There needs to be a bare minimum, a standard for people to survive. There's absolutely help for zero people to have homeless people in the streets. Every single person is negatively impacted in some way because there's homeless people. There's the people whose lives are completely ruined by having no opportunities. There's the fact that we are wasting money year in, year on out on the issue, but not solving the issue when we can solve the issue. We're spending twice as much on Band-Aid solutions than we are on actually solving the wound. Just create the bare minimum.
Exactly.
End this issue. It can be solved. We've done pilot programs. We've done so many different testing. It works in Alaska. It works in Norway. It works in this country. It works in this neighborhood. It always works and always produces more prosperity. and economic opportunity and solutions for people who don't have any sort of opportunity whatsoever. It gives them something to get them started, to move them in direction of getting their life together. The only way people can solve their lives is not if they're forced into certain situations by the government. It is if you're given opportunities to fix your own life. Opportunities, a second chance. Because if you are an economic contributor, then you can produce more value than you ever took up when the minimum, the minimum amount of money that you receive from the government. You can become such a big economic creator and, a contributor to society, and not just a leech living on the streets who makes the neighborhood uncomfortable or whatever. We want clean neighborhoods. We want safe neighborhoods. We don't want to feel like we're going to get robbed because of economic disparity, that people need to do that to survive. There's so many crime and issues that fuel right-wing reactionary politics, like the hatred of, black people or homeless people or any sort of thing that makes people afraid, are all products of economic depravity. I can't say that word. Deprivation, whatever.
Deprivation? Yeah, I got it.
Whatever.
Deprivation.
Deprivation. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's much better.
There's that word.
This is all a product of economic deprivation. And, no opportunity is being offered to a majority of society. Well, the people that do have opportunity, it just sort of swims in its own little neighborhood and its own little circles.
Mm-hmm.
You go to this college, you're my cousin went to this college, then you get better chance of getting into that college. It's self-perpetuating cycle.
No, I agree with you.
It is, and what we're seeing right now is frankly really scary.
Yeah.
It's I think we're facing a tsunami of socioeconomic hardship. I just 7-8 years ago, I was going through rough times before this. Oh my gosh. I went ahead and applied for voucher program through the Kansas City Housing Authority. I am number 21,602 on the list for County for subsidized housing.
Wow.
Yeah. And for public housing, I'm number 9,700. And that if we don't, and granted, Kansas City is not at all we're not equipped socially for this.
No.
But if we can house people and keep them safe, it's also a public health issue too. We need to keep the ERs free because whatever comes along next, whatever pandemic is next, and there will be another pandemic because we're also really bad. That's another issue of global climate change and encroaching on habitats where we should not be. But if we can lessen the burden just to the healthcare system alone, that would have a major impact. I could go on about this subject.
Yeah, I think you guys are both right. I think socialized medicine and socialized economics. Well, let me be careful. Let me say.
No, you were almost right. You were.
No, let me not say socialized economics. Socialized medicine.
We almost got you.
Yeah, and more progressive economic plans. That's the word I was looking for.
I don't know why they can't be both.
Such as UBI. Well, there's a big difference between socialist economics versus progressive economics. We don't believe
it depends.
I don't believe everyone should get paid the same. If you work hard,
anybody believes that.
Exactly, but if you're true,
I don't think socialists believe that. There's either the communists who believe that the commodity and money shouldn't exist at all, and we should live. Once we're in a scarcity-free society, everybody should have you just work and then you can take what you need. That's communism. Socialism is that the workers should own the means of production, not that they should get paid the same. It just means that instead of having a capitalist mode of production where all the production is owned by purely the investor class, purely all the profits in society and the shareholders and the shares in the stocks, bonds, all are owned by the wealthiest class, the wealthiest 1% of society. That's the socialist. That's what makes you a socialist, is not believing that is what makes sense. Not even for a market system, that doesn't make sense. Having all the money and power, all the decision making and economic raising the prices, hiring, all this stuff is made by the same 1% of people who don't work. They don't have jobs. They're making an income based on usury and property. That's it. And that is a problem. I'm not saying there's a lot of different solutions. That's what makes it a socialist such a wide-ranging topic. The state socialist solution of the Marxist-Leninist ideology is what has overtaken the early 1900s all the 1900s. That's a completely different ideology. We should be using different terms, if anything. It's my market socialist, liberal socialist ideology is more equivalent to mutualism, or like a Proudhon, Ricardian. So there's a lot to it, and it's not anything to do with state commanded economy. It's just simply production derives specifically from labor. Labor is what moves production and creates value at a company. It's not even just physical labor. It's management, at employees, all employed people, and not just people who invest. All the employed people are the ones that derive value in the economy, not the people that sit back and invest on Robinhood app. Those people are the ones that own the profits of the companies, but those are the ones that are making decisions and sit on boards. That's the problem. We could have good sized companies of very successful. They can charge whatever they want. They could pay employees whatever they decide, but the management is decided by the employees, not by the people who are going to please the shareholders. Which is why all of our management is beholden to the corporate interests, and everything is top down from people who don't work at companies that they control. That's the problem. We want more, workplace self-management. The people that work at the companies know how to do it efficiently, yet they're controlled by people who pay for the right to tell them what to do.
No, that was a masterclass on breakdown between socialism and communism, because I don't even think of it that deep. But Seth is always the one that he has more insight in terms of the nuanced differences between the two.
Yeah,
I have a very generalistic thinking of it, and my idea of it is just simply that I'm a capitalist. I do believe in capitalism, but what I do,
I think you believe in social capitalism, which is
maybe, and you're better at qualifying the names.
no, that would be more towards like you would say you like a people-centered capitalism, like the Andrew Yang.
Yes,
You're more
I do believe in that. I believe that unions should sit on boards. I believe in UBI. I believe in progressive economic agendas.
Yeah.
I don't believe in totalitarianism, which communism ended up always turning into.
Any of the authoritarian countries.
Yeah. So I don't believe in that, but I do believe in the idea of the working man being involved in company decisions, and that's my idea.
Now, my specific form of socialism, my view, is liberal socialism, which is pretty much the least amount socialist you can be while still considering yourself that. Because I don't believe at this day and age it would make any sort of sense to have a ban on private enterprise, anything like that. I think we need to work within the market system that we all coexist in, the globe. I think you have to work towards them. That's why I'm a progressive as well. I think it's a stage in society that we were a mercantile capitalist, then we became a shareholder capitalist country, then we're more of a liberal capitalist society now, where there's a little bit more, expansion of property rights for, anybody that can grasp at it, essentially. And we need to expand the right to property to more people, a liberal socialist society, a society that incentivizes, employee stock ownership programs, it incentivizes social control, something like a social wealth fund, which would buy assets from companies all across, and then it would distribute the profits amongst the people. They do that in Norway, with the oil fields are nationalized, and because they're nationalized, all the profits that come from the oil fields just are in a dividend fund for every single person that lives in the country. So everybody has assets in the country because they're citizens of that country, and that goes along with UBI, because they get, like I said, they get dividends. You get money back for property that you own naturally as a human being. I don't think that that's the key to socialism. Is you just inherently have value, as you deserve money or whatever. It's like you're incentivizing you to become a contributing factor in society, and that's just something that's going to happen. You need the bare minimums of healthcare and this and that. So let's just create the best thing for everybody. Essentially, let's just be a catalyst for everybody achieving their own ambitions, the liberal ideal, essentially. Everybody put in the right place to do.
It drives down desperation.
Go ahead.
It drives down desperation, and when people are not desperate, they're not committing desperate acts.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how most contracts are signed in the capitalist system, is literally out of desperation. I will die. Otherwise, if I don't die, I could sell my property rights, my profits, my right to profit off my own labor to this capitalist company, which is going to exploit me and pay me for that right to my profits. Essentially, it's a different contract, essentially, and it's based on coercion. Just like they accuse the taxation system of being. Private enterprise is just as coercive as government, and that's why they assume that just because it's small government that there's not authoritarianism or coercion, but that's not true, because private enterprise is power still. They have the power over you, and they can control what you do because they control your livelihood and your income.
This is, like I said,
I think
Steph is always going to give the master class. Sorry, the delay thing.
I know. Well, I think one thing that most people don't, right? Sorry, one thing that most people don't realize is just how enmeshed our capitalist system has become with our government. I've realized just in my own advocacy efforts, okay, sure, maybe I can go get this or that representative or this or that senator. None of this is going to change until corporate interest changes. So, okay, y'all go do that. Do keep going with the advocacy on the legislative end. Yeah. Someone has to go and start addressing it on the corporate end, because until we do that, this is not changing.
Well, I think we were doing that. I mean, as a country, I think BLM kind of gave us that blueprint on the Black Lives Matters of how putting political pressure on corporations.
That's a good point.
Was a changing of a tide of a lot of political agendas. Even the right moved a little bit to the left, because they're like, we can't.
Yeah, this is the most absurd concept, because you always hear Republicans talk about like, or libertarians, we don't need to regulate the economy because you have the free market is going to regulate it. So, we're going to respond. The people are going to respond to the company and decide how they want to, if they want to protest it or if they want to consume it. That's their free choice in the market. Yeah. And then the second that people start protesting a company for having racial ties or this or that, then they're like, they're woke, they're blah 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 blah. Right. They're doing exactly what you wanted them to do, except they don't want you. They need you to shut up and accept prices for the way they are, and because they're screwed essentially, so they don't expect anybody else to be doing better than they are. So they're trying to more drag you down to their level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna get $11.50 an hour, and you're gonna like it.
Yeah, because
unless you're in California, they're paying 20.
22.
All my Californians, you get $22.
22 an hour at McDonald's. The minimum wage is 16.
Yeah. Ooh, in Missouri, I think it's $12 an hour now.
Yeah, I think in Florida it's still $9 an hour.
Yeah.
Let me double check. I'm just lying. I don't know.
Well, in Tampa, I remember when I lived in Tampa, at least the state minimum wage or whatever. No, not the state, the county. It was $10 an hour.
It's $12.
So it's $10 an hour in my county in Tampa. But I mean,
it is $12 an hour in Florida.
That's good. That's better.
Yeah, that's respectable.
It's better than it was when I was there.
Yeah, it's not a livable wage at all.
Man. I was literally getting paid $10 an hour and a free meal to be a bar back for like 30 hours a week, and then I'd be like, "Yo, I made $300, and I got to eat for free for a couple times." Great.
But it's also cheap too in Florida. We don't Well,
Oh, it is not. It is not
housing.
equivalent.
I take that back. It used to be super cheap in
Yeah,
Florida.
it's one of the
Yeah,
rising.
your housing is a
Yeah.
dumpster fire, sir.
Yeah, our housing, our rental went through the roof. Like our property insurance rates are through the roof. Our mortgages are through the roof. Our houses are through the roof. It's like everyone's moving to Florida, but no one can afford to live here, so they just leave.
Yeah.
It's like,
Even your insurance rates. Oh my God, how does anybody
yeah, they go
afford
like-
that?
we don't know how we're affording it at this point. I mean, our wages are not going up. It's not like California wages, but our prices are in the same levels as California, which I don't know how we're doing it. I mean, same thing with New York City. I mean, our prices are right. We're on par with them, but our wages are still staying stagnant.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna find out sure enough when this come November when we now get to vote on marijuana, we get to vote on abortion, and we get to vote on our economy. It was
What do
like,
you think that what do you think that's gonna end up being? Do you think it's gonna be all them?
no, the Dems gonna come out for the marijuana thing. We've been
Yeah,
wanting
you're right.
marijuana in Florida for years.
And abortion probably too. You think they're gonna win abortion?
Yeah, I think abortion. Yeah, but marijuana is gonna be the bigger driver.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
abortion
agree.
is big.
Yeah.
We've been
If we
wanting
can do it in
marijuana.
Missouri, you can do it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, I don't. But we did
Miami,
it.
Miami alone could do it.
Yeah, we've passed marijuana. The problem was the governor and the Republicans. They try to put all these restrictions on it. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can do it, but only for medical purposes. This and this. So we had to do
And those
another.
were all
referendum.
bullshit anyways, because the medical thing was basically like, we'll give it to you, we'll give it to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is, it costs like $500 a year to have like the license. So they're basically just restricting it for poor people, and people that had made money could have legal weed, basically. That's what it's down to.
No, you're 100% spot on. I mean, at the end of the day, it was just a tactic. I mean, marijuana. I mean, even the prosecutor's offices didn't even. When I worked there, they didn't even prosecute them anymore. They were like, "It's marijuana. Yeah, we're not going to be able to prove it because it's legal." So, like, it's legal, so can't charge somebody with a crime that's legal. You know, so it's one of those things.
I'm still waiting on Biden to use it as a Hail Mary to win the election, is to finally legalize marijuana as he promised 4 years ago, pretty much.
I mean, he don't. I mean, federally, they don't pursue that. I mean, it's more
why not
of
just do it then? Why not reschedule it? Why not do this everything? There's so much. There's so much he could do right now.
We wish. I think we have a big wish list for President Biden, but I mean,
a lot of them are legislative wish lists. Well, that is something that he could do with an executive order.
That's true too.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, he can't. He can't ban it with an executive order. You can't ban marijuana. I mean, sorry, he can't.
No, he decides the classification. He could. It's a Schedule 1 drug right now. It's higher than fentanyl. It's higher. It's all the fine drugs. Literally, like the psychedelics. All the fine ones are like Schedule 1, and then they have like heroin, fentanyl are all like Schedule 3. It's like you could fix all this right now and schedule it accordingly to like overdose rates, according to all sorts of things. And right now it's just disorganized. Just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I think one thing a president should be doing should be focusing on what the president has the power to do.
That's true. Trump did that,
which is not much, to be honest.
He did a lot of stuff. A lot of people didn't even know the president could do all that.
So true.
Give him the power. It's like, you
Right?
do all
He
that?
was a bull in a china shop. Oh my God!
He even just made up
Wow!
stuff
Not only
presidents
did he
can
do that, he
Yeah, exactly.
shoot.
Well, guys,
Yeah,
we're over our hour
I-
mark. Go ahead, Amanda.
we are. Oh
You
no!
get the last thought.
No,
You get the last thought.
as much as or as little as Biden could actually do as president, just mentioning things is a start.
Yeah.
He doesn't mention a lot of things. He just kind of glosses
But-
over like,
but the-
"Hi, I am here as your rebound president."
The trans rights thing that through Biden has been one of like the most positive aspects, in my opinion.
Yeah,
He's the first president to be like recognizing trans rights to this extent, and it's
that is huge.
It could not be more important in this time, because this is a time where it's like the entire culture war is ultimately comes down to like sex and gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Republicans being obstructionist of the modern classification of sex and gender and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
all LGBTQ is all tied to trans, is all tied to Democratic agenda, is all tied to all these sort of made up conspiracies that are all connected. And just recognizing that people exist and, the realities exist, and it's not, just a social phase or any of this sort of whatever Republicans think. Just acknowledgement is still a step forward. It's still better than nothing. It's still better than what Trump would do. And I
Exactly.
think it's important.
Starts the conversation.
Yeah. Well, guys, I think that's we went over our hour mark, and I think that's a show for today. So I want you guys to take some homework. Find someone from Florida, give them a call, and tell them, hey, go vote, so we can so when I come down on vacation, that we
I'm
can
calling
smoke some
Jesse.
wine.
What's your number, Jesse?
All right, guys.
Yeah, I'll call you.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks, Amanda, once again for coming on the show. Amanda, let us know what your Twitter handle is.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's Ruby Slippers. Basically like Ruby Slippers, but instead of ERS, it's AHS. Ruby Slippers.
All right, guys. You guys need to follow Ruby Slippers.
Slippers.
Ruby Slippers.
Yeah.
And also follow Seth on his social. You guys already follow me, but we need to keep expanding this message. We're getting closer and closer to November, and we got to get out the vote, and we got to let people know why the progressive way is the only way. So thanks you guys for tuning in.
Next week we have Scott Santens on, and he's gonna be he's gonna be talking UBI. He was, to my knowledge, he's the person that gave Andrew Yang the idea for UBI, and I've read his book.
That's cool.
It's right here. I have his book right here. I'm very excited for this one. So it should be a fun episode. I think it's next week, Wednesday, too. So,
all right, guys. So tune in next week, Wednesday, if you want to learn more about UBI. It's a lot
more, I'm sure.
Yes, a lot more. All right, guys.
Okay, everybody.
Thanks.